I'm here in New York City and I have the new Fuji Xhalf, and I can't think of a better place to do some street photography than with this. But I was thinking, what if I compared it to the iPhone 16 Pro, because they're kind of in the same realm. They're both small pocketable cameras, but obviously one's a camera, one's a phone. But once you get some apps on this phone, you can mimic film simulations in grain, similar to the Fuji Xhalf. So let's try it out. And this video is sponsored by Taurus, so we're gonna put on one of their new O-Stand fitness cases, and we'll talk about them in a bit later. Although I'm comparing the Xhalf to the iPhone, we kind of need to talk about the Xhalf because it just came out. And this camera is not about the specs. I think there's a lot of negativity around this camera because people think it's supposed to be like a mini X100 VI, and it's not trying to be that. And I get why there's some confusion because it's kind of blurring the lines between an X series camera and an Instax. Obviously this camera doesn't have a printer built into it, but it does have all the cool film simulations you get in a X series camera, but it doesn't have all the same manual controls that you would get in an X series camera. And it's just more simplistic and more fun to use. And by the end of this video, we'll find out who it's for. So to get some similar looks to the Xhalf, I use a couple different apps. I use the Perla app as well as the Dazcam app. And I gotta say, I use the Perla app for most of it because it does have classic negative and it has classic chrome. So pretty similar to the Xhalf. But one thing I noticed is that it really leans into the low-mo look. So it doesn't look quite as sharp, less detail. But that's not to say that the iPhone can't shoot higher resolution detail. I made sure that I was in 12 megapixels instead of 48 megapixels that the iPhone can shoot because the Xhalf is only 18 megapixels. And although it looks metal, it's actually fully plastic. It's got an 18 megapixel 1-inch vertically mounted sensor for native vertical photos. It's got a fixed 32mm f2.8 lens. It's got a leaf shutter. It only shoots JPEG and it only has contrast detection autofocus, but it's super lightweight. It's only 240 grams with the battery. It has no EVF, but it does have a vertical OVF. And of course it has that vertical LCD as well as a sub touchscreen for swiping through your film simulations and getting to options in your menu. It does come in silver, and I have it in charcoal, but you can also get it in black. Fuji made this camera so you can just toss it in your bag, put it in your pocket, take it to parties, bars, walks, travel, anywhere where I think you wouldn't want to bring an expensive camera and you just want kind of a point and shoot fun camera. That's what this is for. But in saying that, you can do all the exact same things with the iPhone. And when it comes to image quality, I would say they're not even that far off of each other. And in some ways, the iPhone might even be better because of all the processing it's doing. And I took a shot of this food here, and as you can see, it almost has the same amount of shallow depth of field. Yes, the sensor's bigger than the Xhalf, but because it's f2.8 versus the iPhone's f1.7 on the smaller sensor, it almost looks exactly the same. Now, the Xhalf has a lot of other features outside of the film simulations. There's a bunch of effects and stuff, but one of the cool things is that because this is a half frame camera, you can actually combine 2 frames into one photo. So if you want to take one shot, you ratchet the lever, and then you can take another shot, and it combines them into one frame. Now, the iPhone can also do this with the Dazcam app. It does have an Xhalf type camera in it, and so I took a couple shots, and you can see what those look like. So Taurus sent over some new O-Stand cases for the iPhone 16 line, and I currently have the O-Stand Fitness in Obsidian Black. And this case is really cool. Now they come in a bunch of other colors, and the cool thing about these cases is they kind of have a frosted, transparent back, so your phone shows through, but they're also really good with rejecting fingerprints. Now, one of my favorite things about these cases is that they have this magnetic ring that pops out, and you can actually rotate it horizontal or vertical wherever you want to place the phone down on your table. And it has a really satisfying click as you rotate the ring, so you know it's going to stay in place. Now this is a really strong magnet, and the cool thing with this is you can stick it to anything metal. So say you want to stick it to a metal post or even your fridge, say you're out vlogging or watching a movie, you can do that with this ring. Now it's also MagSafe compatible, so if you want to put something on it like the Mini Mag, which is a battery bank here from Taurus, you can slap that on there and you know that's not going to come off. This case is also nice and slim. I hate thick cases, and it also has a nice texture grip around the outside so it won't slip out of your hand. And one feature I really love about this is that the camera control button is actually covered, and it still has capacitive touch, so it passes through the case. And a lot of other cases just make a big notch around the camera control button, and it doesn't really protect it, but on this case it is. Now this line of cases has 3 times the amount of drop protection, so inside it has this little internal weave pattern to help protect your phone. And as I mentioned, it comes in a bunch of different colorways, and it's also made for the iPhone 15 Pro as well. Anyway, thanks to Taurus for sponsoring this video. If you're loving these cases, I'll have links in the description. Let's get back to the video. Now, the big thing with the Xhalf is that it only shoots JPEG, which I mentioned before, so it's gonna bake in the film simulation into your image. And the cool thing about the iPhone, though, is that you can shoot JPEG or RAW. So if you wanted to shoot RAW, you could get the most dynamic range out of your images. And if you love editing, you can get different film sims and different presets and try those out on your images. And honestly, I think the iPhone is probably gonna be a better option for most people, and especially if you're shooting video. So this is what the video quality looks like on the Xhalf. It's not gonna win any awards. There's no stabilization. It shoots 1080p, 24 frames per second. It has that early 2000s flip phone look. The audio is not too great. Now, if you wanted to make a montage of random clips, you could do that with this, but I wouldn't use this for video. So one of the cool things is that this camera has a film emulation mode that treats it like a real film camera. So you go to film camera mode, you can choose your film stock. Right now we're using classic negative. Then in here you can choose your number of shots. So 36, 54, 72, we're gonna leave it at 36. You can burn in the date stamp if you want to, and then your exposure mode will set to auto, and then you hit start. And then from here, you don't get to see your images. You just see the info. So the remaining shots, whether you switch to autofocus or manual focus, you can turn the date stamp on and off again, and then obviously you can see your focus here. So once you've taken your first shot, you can see that you've taken your shot there. And in order to take your next shot, you gotta treat it like film. So you gotta advance the film to the next frame. And then when you're ready to shoot, this will say okay. You can take your next shot. And so from here on out, you can keep shooting, and when you get to the end of your 36 rolls, you import these to your phone, and then it kind of develops them like negatives. So there are a few downsides to this camera that I wish Fuji would have maybe changed. And the first one would be the fact that it's using an LED flash and it's not very bright. It would have been better if they were using something like a xenon flash that they use in other cameras. Even some of their other Instax cameras have xenon flashes and they're way brighter. They fill the whole room and they give you that kind of overexposed look that I think they're trying to go for on this camera. And I'd give it a pass if you could put your own flash on it if they actually put a hot shoe, but they didn't. And the other thing I noticed is that when you have grain turned on, the camera becomes infinitely slower. And that's kind of unfortunate because when I'm shooting with this, I kind of want to have the grain turned on because that's the kind of film look that you want to go for. But when you have that enabled, it really slows the camera down between shots. So you have to wait a little bit longer when you take your next shot. And I'd say the last thing, and that comes down to price, is that for the price, I feel like this should have been made of metal. I think that it's fine if it's plastic, but I feel like, you know, maybe that puts it in more of like a $400 to $5 price range. So my final thoughts, clearly this camera was made for social media. Why else would they put the sensor in it vertical? Why else would they have the screen vertical? It's kind of like your phone. You're gonna bring it with you, you're gonna have fun with it. You can pretty much hand it off to anyone. Anyone can use this to take photos with. It's not gonna be intimidating. You literally can put it in full auto and get great shots with it, but you're not gonna be buying it for pixel peeping and for like laser sharp images. You're buying it because it makes you wanna go out and shoot and get images quickly, just like you would with your phone. But in saying that, you can do most of what you can do on this with the iPhone if you have the right apps. But I would say that this is a little bit more inspiring to shoot with than an iPhone. And I think that that's what the Xhalf is about. All right, so let me know in the comments if the Xhalf is something that you would buy or pass on. I had fun shooting with it, but I personally think that it's not for my demographic. I'd rather have more manual controls and be able to shoot raw. But I do think it's pretty cool, and it's interesting to see it compared to the iPhone and what you can get with the iPhone versus something like this, especially when you get the right apps for it. And in saying that, it's pretty cool to see Fuji trying something new that other camera brands aren't trying, like the vertical sensor. But like I said, if you have the right apps on your phone and you have a phone made in the last 2 to 3 years, you can get pretty similar looks to this. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. If you dislike this video, give it a thumbs down twice. Don't forget to hit that notification bell. See you guys in the next one.